told him to
No,
go
no, no.
compose himself.
That's cool. That's because we just went live on the air on Google.
let's
not
embark.
Google, but
Well, let's just put it at that. He's fine.
good. I'm
He
glad.
just needed to stretch his legs. You know,
Cool.
sitting for a while.
I like it.
All right.
No problem with that.
Charlie has been great from home. Just so you have a status.
Okay,
report.
so he has been broadcasting from home.
Sounds great too.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And he's
good.
really found his niche with this format.
Has he?
He really has.
Yeah.
I told Janet the way we can market his show, it's the evening paper come to life.
There you go. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah. And like you, he's so much fun to work with. So.
Well, I'm glad.
You got a good crew there. I hope you know that.
No. I sincerely appreciate. I appreciate everybody I've got here. We work really hard, and we're going to be. This is going to work.
You want to hire me so bad, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Do you really?
Well, actually, I really do. I really would like to. I got work to do with this radio station. I got work to do with the radio station, but at some point, I'd like to help out.
Yeah, if it can earn me a few extra bucks, I'm in.
Yeah, it can. It would.
All right. We'll leave it at that.
Let's see
here.
here.
Public mic.
Yep.
So you're ready to fly, my friend?
Yeah, I am. I'm ready to go.
All right. And I got your guest on the line. He's all set.
Can you go ahead and label him up, please? Sean Davis, co-founder, The Federalist.
Got it.
I would appreciate it.
Hope I spelled that right. I think I did. All right, here we go.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. Good afternoon. I am John David Wells. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. 844-927-6691 is our telephone number. 844-927-6691. That is a very good number to have handy because we have a very special guest on the Wells Report today, Mr. Sean Davis. Sean is the co-founder of The Federalist. Sean, welcome to the Wells Report. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to me a little bit about the Federalist. It obviously harkens back to the Federalist Papers. Give me an idea what you do.
We are a conservative online magazine that focuses on religion, culture, politics, and we try to host debates on pretty much all the issues. We don't have an editorial point of view. We like to find people with interesting perspectives, with interesting thoughts on the politics of the day, and we love to publish those arguments.
That's outstanding. Whoa, thank you very much for that very large noise. And you probably didn't hear that, as a matter of fact. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about just exactly what's been going on in Washington, D.C. I guess the best place to start is the deep state. Have we ever dealt with anything like this before? In other words, a president's administration filled with so many hardcore true believers that they, for all intents and purposes, certainly have at least obstructed and perhaps sabotaged portions of the new incoming administration?
Well, I think it's been pretty disturbing to see. And look, I understand that everyone has their own political views and opinions, and there's nothing wrong with people working in the federal government having personal opinions that don't align with the president or whoever runs their agency, their bosses. That's fine. We're all adults. We know how to disagree and still be professional. What I have found most disturbing is these latest allegations that we have basically from text from Department of Justice and FBI officials saying, no, what we've got here is an insurance policy against Trump being elected. That's really, really disturbing. I mean, if you consider Watergate, that was a 2-bit break-in that brought down the president. And what we have, or what it appears we have, over the last year and a half was the surveillance apparatus, the United States law enforcement powers being used to secretly spy on and surveil an administration's political opponents. I mean, that is that is devastating to a republic, if indeed that's what happened.
It seems like that happened. I've been talking about that, and I've been extremely concerned about that being the case. Sean, what we're going to do here is we're going to hang up, and we're going to try to call you right back. Sean Davis is our guest. He is the co-founder of the Federalist. He is talking to us a little bit about some very serious issues having to do with the people of the United States. And of course, the administration, both the former administration, the Obama administration, and indeed the current administration, being the Trump administration. Sean, can you hear us a little better now?
I'm getting him back on the phone. His phone messed up.
Okay, yeah. What we have here is we've got a bit of an issue here with Sean's telephone. What he was referring to has to do with an article that I found from the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. Democrats and the media are accusing anyone who criticizes Special Counsel Robert Mueller as Trumpian conspirators trying to undermine the probe. But you really don't need critics, and you really don't need people to create problems for the probe itself when people like Peter Strzok is I've already got one. Thank you. Peter Strzok is working to essentially undermine the new president at every possible turn, and saying some very incredibly provocative things. Like, for example, the FBI's Trump insurance. This is a guy, Peter Strzok, is the guy who was involved in much of Hillary Clinton's the investigation at Hillary Clinton's server, her email server, and her misconduct there. And it seems to me like the fix was in from the very beginning. Are we on the right line, Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, he's back.
Okay, sir. Sean, can you hear me now?
I can. Sorry about that.
There we go. No problem whatsoever. That was just a huge bit of noise. Talk to us a little bit about this. Does this look like sabotage to you? It looks like the fix was in for Hillary Clinton, because obviously if you are trying to save the country from this amazing menace, it seems to me that what you would do is could you overlook espionage if you're an FBI agent?
What I find just baffling about the Hillary case is you had a guy involved, Peter Strzok was his name. He's one of the people whose very incriminating text messages on FBI phones talking about FBI business have come out. He interviewed Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin, top confidants of Hillary Clinton. And we know they said things to him during their official FBI interviews that were not true. And instead of them being charged with false statements for obstructing justice, for not being truthful with the FBI, one of them was actually given immunity. Her computers were destroyed. The other was let go. You had the FBI director exonerating Hillary in draft statements long before he had ever even interviewed you. It's difficult for me to look at those facts and conclude anything other than, yeah, the fix was in. She was never, ever going to be held accountable, and justice was never going to be served in that case. That goose was cooked.
In point of fact, I remember Loretta Lynch bringing up some things having to do with, I will make sure that the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server doesn't go too far. Does that now reach out of the FBI into the Department of Justice? And does that not, doesn't that harbinge a clear path towards corruption?
Well, it's interesting. Loretta Lynch never recused herself from that case. Never. She never said she would step out, wouldn't be involved in any way. She only said, "Oh, no, you know what? I'm just going to leave this to the prosecutors to figure this out." Without mentioning, yet these are the people who she had put in those jobs. They're political appointees. It's the whole thing is just so dirty. And then when you see how the FBI and the Department of Justice are treating a very serious congressional investigation right now, stonewalling at every turn, refusing to send people to testify, not being responsive to pretty simple document requests, something's rotten in that agency, and I think the American people deserve answers about what actually is going on.
Sean Davis is our guest, co-founder of the Federalist. When you see that kind of co-opting of the number one federal law enforcement agency in possibly any country on earth, when you start thinking about that, you start thinking about the political obfuscation that immediately set on the IRS, I mean, the IRS was a mess. The clandestine services of American intelligence, with people being bugged through FISA warrants that were indeed foreign actors, but they were engaged in conversations with domestic politicians and domestic political activists who were indeed working through a transition and so on and so on. It looks to me that this is getting, it got way out of hand, and it certainly did progress from obstruction right through to sabotage.
Yeah, it's a very disheartening thing to see, because the thing that has always set America apart from every other country is our ability to have these seamless, peaceful transfers of power from one president to the next. We don't have coups. We don't have people deposed. We accept, even when we don't like the results of elections, and we put those people in power and we move on, knowing that there's always another election to maybe right something that wasn't done correctly. And instead, what we're seeing now is we're seeing people call it the deep state, but we're seeing a bureaucracy full of people who weren't elected, who aren't accountable to the people, basically saying, you know what, it doesn't matter what the voters said. We're in charge here. We get to do what we want. Reminds me of the scene in the movie Captain Phillips with Tom Hanks, where he's been taken hostage by some pirates, and you have the pirate look at him and say, look at me, I'm the captain now. I kind of feel like that's what's happening with our bureaucratic apparatus. They're looking at the American people and saying, no, we're in charge now.
Where do we go from here? How do we rid ourselves of this? Okay, let's just call it corruption.
That's the question of the day. I think you have to have an administration and a Congress that are not going to take it anymore. And unfortunately, I think the Trump administration so far has been far too ambivalent about what's happening under its own nose. These people are not going to root themselves out voluntarily. They're not going to self-deport out of the bureaucracy. You need an executive who makes clear that this behavior won't be tolerated, and you need a legislature to make clear that the agencies they created and oversee will not be allowed to behave in this manner. And probably the best way for them to do that is through their appropriations authority. But whether the executive and the Congress are willing to do that, that's the question.
Sean Davis is the co-founder of the Federalist. He's our guest on the Wells Report here on the USA Radio Network. Talk to us a little bit about the Roy Moore situation, a man who can be completely run out of a perfectly otherwise completely normal United States election. He can be run out of that election by 12 people and a mainstream media that seems to want to try everybody in the court of newspaper.
I think what happened in Alabama, it's easy to look at that and try to extrapolate lessons out of Alabama towards the nation as a whole. Personally, I think that's a bit of a mistake. There was so much unique stuff going on there. You had a corrupt governor who got thrown out. You had him appoint in a very corrupt-looking fashion the very attorney general, career lobbyist, who had spiked an investigation into the governor who appointed him. You had a Senate Majority Leader, deeply, deeply unpopular, more unpopular in Alabama than Barack Obama, which is remarkable. You had him deciding that it was going to be up to him to pick Alabama's next senator. You had a fatally flawed candidate in Roy Moore with all these allegations. The whole thing was a dumpster fire from the very beginning. So I look at all of that and I see, you know what, I see a lot of people who made terrible decisions, and to try and wriggle out of the blame, they've decided they're just going to blame everyone else. And I kind of just wish everyone involved in that mess would take some responsibility and vow not to make those same mistakes again. My
concern on that is that allegations seem to be enough to destroy a political career. Is that the way we're going to see politics in the future?
I think that's certainly the way we're going to see politics in the future. I have concerns with that. I like process. I like actual justice. I don't like stuff being litigated in the media. But I look at all this and say, you know, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And if this is going to be the way politics are run now, watch out, because there's no way it's going to be isolated. It's not going to be kept to one party over the other. I worry that Pandora's box has been opened, and that a second an allegation's out, doesn't matter if it's the most bona fide, credible thing you can find with lots of evidence, or it's nothing. it has the potential to ruin lives. And I really hope people are considering and weighing the consequences of this environment that we're in now.
Well, I got that, and I'm very concerned about it as you are, but I look at this and I say, well, it's not just Pandora's box. What it is a complete departure from American due process. And as far as I know, the fact that the media has such a large role in becoming what is for all intents and purposes, a multimedia lynch mob, this is a bad thing.
It is, and like I said, I hope people are really weighing the consequences here, because once the media understands it can destroy anyone at will, Katie, bar the door.
Exactly. If people want to know more about the Federalist, where do they go and what do they do?
They go to thefederalist.com. Check us out. We've got articles every day. Follow us on Twitter at FDRLST, and we're on Facebook as well.
Sean, we're going to keep your telephone number. We hope you come back on a regular basis. It's good hearing from you and good talking to you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Sean Davis, the co-founder of the Federalist, joining us on the Wells Report. Coming up, we unravel a little bit more about the FBI's Trump insurance, courtesy of the Wall Street Journal. This is Interactive News. You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Join us on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Sounding good.
Thank you, sir. What?
All right, back in 1 minute. right, we're back in 10 seconds, man.
10 dang seconds. Telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. And that's our telephone number in case. Don't be fooled by any other number that I may say, because it's not the right one. It is actually 844-927-6691. You could have told me. See? Yeah. See, what we try to do is we try to keep a slingshot handy for executive producer V. Philip Brown to shoot me with small frozen vegetables whenever I make a mistake like that, but apparently it didn't happen. Want to thank Sean Davis for joining us. He is the co-founder of the Federalist, and we're going to spend some time talking with those guys because they do great work. Let's talk a little bit about something that's been going on. This is the Wall Street Journal that has come up with a editorial board redo, if you will, of what's been going on in the Mueller investigation with these communications between Peter Strzok and this person, Lisa Page, who seems to be a paramour of Mr. Strzok. And the way this works is that there are troubling texts. I'm not worried about the ones that talk about how these people hate President Trump. There have been a lot of people in business, in the federal government, wherever, who have said that they absolutely abhor President Trump and so on and so on. That's not the issue. But there are other ones that are very disturbing, specifically the one that says, this was from Mr. Strzok to Ms. Page. Quote, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, Andy being Andrew McCabe, the current FBI director. I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way Trump gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. He goes on to say it's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. Immediately, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal asks the proper question. What policy would that be? What is anti-Trump insurance? Not only are we looking at a situation where various high-ranking officers in the FBI made very basic and very bad mistakes, at least that's how they were originally portrayed. It's now beginning to look like there's a coordinated effort to make sure that Hillary Clinton did not get into any kind of trouble whatsoever regarding the Espionage Act, regarding her server, regarding any of those things. The fix surely was in, not with a group of people in some county someplace. This was the FBI, because the FBI believed that what they were doing was saving the country from Donald Trump. It seems to me that somebody in the FBI may have wanted to perhaps save the country from someone who violated the Espionage Act, becoming the president of the United States. How about that? These are the issues that have to be discussed. These are the issues that need to be the output of the Mueller investigation. It was about a month ago when I said, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that the wrong people get absolutely sundered in this investigation. The wrong people being the people who tried to put this all together to try to get Robert Mueller to run President Trump to earth. It may be having the exact opposite effect. The more we find out about this, the worse this gets. Can there possibly be a Trump insurance policy, a plot unwinding in the hallways of the FBI in the middle of an investigation of real misconduct by another of the presidential candidates? Is that where we are? That's what it looks like to me. Ms. Page forwarded a Trump-related article in the same month as the Trump insurance one. She said this, quote, "Maybe you're meant to stay where you are because you're meant to protect the country from that menace." He thanked her and assured, "Of course, I'll try to approach it that way." Mr. Strzok is the man who changed the words grossly negligent to extremely careless in James Comey's July 2016 public exoneration of Hillary Clinton's emails. Something that now looks like more of a cover-up than anything we've ever seen before. And certainly a cover-up that has a welcome mat right at the front door of the FBI. Sobering, at least. Sobering, at least. A good conversation with Sean Davis from the Federalist. Our telephone number 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Join us on the Wells Report immediately. We'd love to hear from you as we continue through this Thursday on the USA Radio Network. Back with more in just a moment. All right, sir.
Moving right along.
Right on. Yes, indeed, da-do-da-day. Then the phone rang. John David Wells. Yes.
Back in 1 minute, sir.
Hello.
Hello. Back in 1 minute, sir.
One damn minute. You all right, buddy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We just, man, it's just this, I don't know. It's a long story. We got this guy here who hasn't learned the boundaries of what you can say to people, and says stuff that's personal. Like, he knows that I used to have a problem with opiates and drugs, and one time he brought up something about, trying to be joking, and one time he said something like, "Oh, well, it's too bad you didn't overdose and die," or something. And like, you don't make jokes like that, man. Like,
Did you make an HR complaint?
We don't have no HR place.
You need to. Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Everybody does.
All right, here we go. We're coming back.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool deal. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. My telephone number is 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. Join us, please. We'd love to hear from you. So what we're doing here is we are watching this very interesting play unroll before our eyes on the stage of Washington, D.C. The president of the United States has been working with the Republican Congress to try to get this tax bill done. The president tried to get the Republican Party not to commit political suicide and actually do something remarkable like, I don't know, do what they said they were going to do for 7 years, which was repeal Obamacare. The party itself, whatever, for whatever reason, couldn't possibly get that done. But it looks as though what's going to end up happening is that indeed there's going to be a tax bill that will be on the president's desk and signed by our president shortly before Christmas. And this is something that he's very happy about. He made a statement about it today, and I think it's wonderful. There are, however, other people that are beginning to realize that there are just a few things happening in the United States that bear contemplation and consideration. One of those people is Stephen Moore. He's an economic advisor to FreedomWorks. It is a conservative advocacy group, a CNN economic analyst. He's also a senior economic advisor to the Trump campaign. He brought something up that I wanted to share with you because I've shared it with you. And that is the unbelievable morphing of the Democrat Party from being a party of doing things, a party of working through serious societal problems like civil rights. The Democrat Party has gone from being a party that engages its members to work for the benefit of America into just the opposite. The Democrat Party, now being run by leftist progressives, now encourages their membership to get a piece of the great big government pie. The very opposite of President Kennedy's ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. This is the exact opposite. Ask not what you can do for your country. Ask rather what the country can do for you, what the country can give to you, what the country can provide you with. Stephen Moore brings up this in a CNN article. He says, how sad is it that the party that brought us John F. Kennedy's tax cuts, economic growth, and higher wages is now the party that puts redistribution ahead of prosperity. Not a single House Democrat on November 16th or Senate Democrat on December 2nd voted for their version of the Tax Cuts and Job Act. Not one. Some argue the Trump tax cut will increase the deficit, but they should listen to the wisdom of JFK in 1962. He was battling a large deficit. President Kennedy declared at the New York Economic Club that it is paradoxical truth that tax rates are too high today, tax revenues are too low, and the soundest way to raise revenue in the long run is to cut rates now. I have heard a recording of that speech. This was the one where he famously said that a rising tide raises all boats. JFK knew that the biggest problem in America was not the budget deficit, but a growing deficit. Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, lots of other people know that this is indeed the very truth of macroeconomics. The notion that certain things occur in gigantic economies that defy what could be otherwise used as some sort of political fodder. In order to raise more money for the government, you have to cut taxes. The Democrat Party knows this. They watched this unfold for the 20 years beginning in 1980 with President Reagan, just like the rest of us. It was an economic gift to the people of the United States that lasted nearly 20 years. So good that Bill Clinton left it alone. Bill Clinton said that the age of big government was over. Bill Clinton, perhaps the last Democrat president. Kennedy was proven completely correct. After the tax cuts were enacted, America experienced one of the greatest periods of prosperity in history. Larry Kudlow's 2016 book, JFK and the Reagan Revolution, documented the post-JFK tax cut growth spurt. The tax payments by the wealthiest filers nearly doubled. We had many quarters of 6% growth back then. 6%. The same effect was duplicated when Ronald Reagan chopped the top income tax rate from 70 to 28%, the corporate rate from 46 to 34%. The share of taxes paid by the richest 1% rose around 6% from 1980 to 1990. Total tax revenues surged from $515 billion, make that $517 billion in 1980, to just over $1 trillion by 1990. Tax revenues doubled. Now we find the 21st century progressive Democrats, the progressive leftists that have sundered the Democrat Party. In 1986, Reagan's tax reform bill passed the United States Senate by a vote of 97-3. This included votes of prominent Democrats like Bill Bradley, Ted Kennedy, Howard Metzenbaum, Sam Nunn. In 1997, Bill Clinton, who admittedly raised taxes in 1993, signed into law one of the biggest bipartisan tax cuts in history, including slashing the capital gains tax. Although some argue that Clinton's tax cuts were not the cause of the economic prosperity that followed, it's not just a mere coincidence that America experienced a growth and employment boom so great that the budget reached a surplus. That, by the way, was also work done not just by Bill Clinton, but by the force of the Contract with America, Newt Gingrich, and the Republican Party forcing President Clinton to do the right thing. This Democrat Party looks at these plain chapters in American history and says they were failures. Well, failures of a big government trying to break the back of the American economic engine. It was a failure under those circumstances. It was a failure for big government to provide a better living than people could provide themselves, which is always the case, which is why socialism never works and never will. Democrats to this day will tell you that supply-side economics was a failure. It is not a failure. Supply-side economics has another name: capitalism. When I sit here in this broadcast studio and I look you right in the face and I say, this is an un-American party, there are reasons I say that. It's not just partisan drivel. These people are also saying that the Republican Party is no longer the party of deficit reduction. As you know, based on these three examples now, the one of President Clinton, the one of President Reagan, and the one of President Kennedy, a rising tide does lift all boats, and indeed, the deficit will go down dramatically. And a few years of budget surpluses will indeed help do something about this unbelievable national debt of $20 trillion. And by the way, it really infuriates me that the people that are saying that the Republican Party is no longer the party of deficit reduction spent $5.5 trillion in the first 2 years of the Obama administration and somehow forgot it. Democrats say they wish Trump had put forward a bipartisan tax plan. It would not have worked. Remember, these are the same Democrats that would not have passed John F. Kennedy's original tax cut plan. These people wouldn't do that. They truly want to break the back of the American economic engine. That's you and me. They want the debt to run away. There is their excuse to nationalize American industry. Because clearly, the reason that the American debt has run away is because, well, all of these incredibly greedy corporations have seen fit to steal from the American people. Not the case. The people stealing from the American people are the government workers themselves, the actual socialists in power. The Democrat Party has repudiated JFK economics. Kennedy said in his 1962 address on the state of the national economy, every dollar released from taxation that is spent or invested will help create a new job and a new salary. Again, do you hear any of that kind of rhetoric coming from Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer? The answer is no. The answer is no. A question for Democrats or leftist progressives or elitist anti-Americans. What happened to the Democrat Party? Why did you destroy it? What happened to the Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy? What happened? 844-927-6691. What happened to that party? Where is that Democrat Party? Where are those Democrats? 844-927-6691. Where are those people? Did they all die? Where's the Democrat Party that voted in such strength for the Reagan tax cuts? 97-3? Pretty impressive. Where are those Democrat senators? What happened to the Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy? What happened to it? Ask not what your country can do for you. There are at least 100 million people demanding that the country do something for them right now today. They are looking for a handout right now. They believe that their problems are because the government has not handed out enough. Really? Under no way, shape, or form is that anywhere close to being real. There is no reality under those circumstances. What we are seeing is a creative and cynical abuse of the people of the United States for the sake of politics. For the sake of politics and the ultimate goal of a gigantic socialist United States of America. Finally, the proper group of people that could make socialism work and prove to everyone that the reason that socialism doesn't work is because it just hasn't been tried at the right place at the right time with the right people. Socialism is a soul-crushing experience. That means absolute doom to any nation that tries it. There can be absolutely no argument to this. I'm not giving you partisan politics. I'm reading the news. Another tax cut. Another way of getting America back into the black. And I can hardly wait. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network. All right, man. All right, man.
About what I was telling you before the break.
Yes.
I don't need to tell anybody, man, because I've already talked to him, and we've, it's just this guy, the guy in particular I'm talking about, is like not very good with social things.
It doesn't matter.
I know, but
it's not anywhere close. It's not anywhere close to being. That's not.
Well, he's done it several times. Today he said something like, somebody was talking about taking out the trash because somebody else finally did it for once instead of me or Chris, and they were like, he said, me and Mike do it all the time, and the dude goes, Mike, oh well, this okay because he's white trash anyway, and I was like, what? And I jumped up.
Whoa!
I had to catch myself, like he thinks this is joking, man, and I had to tell him, like, look, man, I'm not from the same place as you, man. I'm from a different place. Like you don't talk to people like that where I'm from because you will get knocked out, and I'm trying. I've like been way refined since back then. Like I'm trying to be the smart and responsible guy. So I just sat him down. I was like, listen, man, you sure can't say personal things about people like that. That's just about me. There's certain things you do not need to joke with me about anymore. And I told him, like, just if it's anything like that, just don't. Matter of fact, you might not need to joke with me at all if you can't refrain from saying personal things like that. So he trust me, JD. He's like a real big Christian kid, always in the church, but he doesn't have any social skills outside of that. So I try to give him a pass on this, but he
Stop.
I know. He said something to Chris one time too about Chris's mom who's passed away, and like it was really Chris almost got on him too, and it's like, man, he's got to learn where to draw the line at. But I don't want him to not be able to joke with me or nothing, or not. I don't want to be like I'm super thin skinned or nothing, but he's got to learn when to draw the line at.
Yeah, that's not anything you need to worry about.
Yeah.
That is not anything you need to worry about.
Yeah. Well, I don't let it get to, I don't let it really get to me. I just wanted to, I just try to let him understand, like, hey, yeah, it's gonna be somebody else you do that to that's not gonna be as nice as me. But he's just a goody two-shoes kid who never been in, like, never had anything hard, never, I try to tell him, like, I'm not from this little nice parents handouts and get everything we want type of lifestyle that you're from. I work hard for everything I got, man. And I don't, I might have a hang up about people calling me white trash. So you just need to watch your mouth. Like
you can't let that go.
Yeah.
You cannot let that go. That guy needs to get written up for that.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he really does. He needs to get written up for it, and he needs to be.
Chris will talk to him, man. Chris witnessed it, and he's like, he'll tell him, he'll get on to him. So it'll be something about it, but
Yeah, well,
we'll do something. I think everybody's aware now. All right. Back in 10 seconds, man.
All right, buddy.
All right. I'm good though, man. I'm here.
Well, just remember you're a part of my team.
Yeah. I got
Okay, and I'm not going to put up with that. I'm not going to put up with it. I'm not going to put up with it. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. 844-927-6691. It's always dangerous to have various militaries in close proximity to each other. It's especially dangerous when two of the greatest armies and air forces and navies in the world are essentially operating in the same place. Strangely enough, for the same reason. But as you get these various pieces of the American military force projection package in contact with the Russian force projection package, bad things can happen. For example, two U.S. F-22 stealth fighters intercepted two Russian aircraft yesterday. The jets crossed the Euphrates River in Syria, flying east of the deconfliction line that is supposed to separate Russian and U.S.-led coalition aircraft operating over Syria. The U.S. jets fired warning flares during the intercept of two Russian Su-25 close air support jets. This, according to the officials, after they crossed the deconfliction line multiple times. One of the officials said an Su-35 fighter jet was also involved. There was an aerial encounter that lasted for several minutes. That's what they call a hassle. It's interesting that anybody could possibly have a several-minute encounter with an F-22. But apparently that happened. U.S. Air Force CENTCOM told CNN last week the Russian aircraft had crossed the deconfliction line near the Euphrates River 6 to 8 times a day in late November. That was something U.S. officials prompted concerns of a clash between coalition and Russian aircraft. The greatest concern is that we could shoot down a Russian aircraft because its actions were seen as a threat to our air or ground forces. This, according to Lieutenant Colonel Damien Pickard, spokesman for the U.S. Air Force Central Command. Coalition leaders have repeatedly said, we're here to fight ISIS, not the Russians or anyone else. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin pledged to continue to uphold those deconfliction measures in their recent joint statements issued on the sidelines of the APEC conference in Da Nang, Vietnam. In that statement, Trump and Putin agreed to maintain open military channels of communication between military professionals to help ensure the safety of both U.S. and Russian forces and deconfliction of partnered forces engaged in the fight against ISIS. Officials have said that part of the arrangement involves defining where Russian aircraft operate, or U.S. aircraft operate. They've already done that, with those operations historically been separated from the Euphrates River. And so, military life intrinsically dangerous. Su-25s, F-22s getting together and hassling. Boy, that's a dangerous happenstance. There is more information coming to us regarding sexual harassment in the United States. More careers being destroyed, and one career on the brink of being destroyed by someone you know causes the host to go, excuse me, we've gone too far. Is it possible to go too far in a sexual harassment allegation? We're going to find out as we continue on the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right, man.
All right.
I heard that the guy, you know who Tavis Smiley is?
Yes,
Yeah, I heard about him too.
that's the guy.
Oh, really?
That's who we're talking to. That's who we're talking about.
Yeah, man. I heard Russ. What's his name? The guy from Def Jam had a lot more on him too.
Yeah. I'm going to run. I'll be back.
All right, cool.
Yes. Somebody. Well, or possibly. Well, what we need is as needed, you know.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. A weekly with someone, they have a bevy of staff writers and whatnot. So it doesn't. So like it, whatever topic is the topic of the week.
Right.
Get that person on, or get someone who wrote something about it. Not that way. It's not always the same person. You get some diversity. So I'm trying to set that up, and I was with Rick with someone from the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Right. Right.
So where it would be like, which I can still do. I mean, that's the process.
We're going to need to figure out how to do a local show. We have to do a local hour. And
That doesn't necessarily have to be local so much as something. What are you saying, like a local hour every day, or a local hour like once a week?
an hour every day. The Wells Report used to be like, we would have an hour where we,
I think that might be force feeding. What if there's not an hour's worth of stuff?
I used to do 4 hours worth of stuff on local television or local radio. I mean, there's plenty of time.
But anyways, my point was we can, with someone from TPPF, we can frame it, even though they specialize in Texas stuff, you can frame it to where it is a national thing. We had someone on talk about free speech on campus. Someone from there talked free speech on campus. While it frame, while it's that particular instance we're talking about dealt with, I forgot what school it was. Right. It's still it's a local and also national issue. I try getting that going again.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it tomorrow. And when I don't have stuff pounding through my head about what I'm about to talk about. Why, thank you, sir.
1 minute, man.
1 minute, man. 1 minute, man.
All right, here we go in 10 seconds.
All right. North to south, coast to coast, this is the Wells Report. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. I want to thank you for being a part of our show today. The sexual harassment tango, the epidemic of sexual harassment claims, charges, and destroyed lives, continued today. The Great American Baking Show, Johnny Iuzzini, will no longer be part of the ABC Winter Recipe following allegations of sexual harassment facing the competition show judge. ABC has also decided not to air the remaining episodes of the series, Cut Ties with the Chef. The third season of the Great American Baking Show recently premiered on ABC December 7th. Quote, in light of allegations that recently came to our attention, ABC has ended its relationship with Johnny Iuzzini and will not be airing the remainder of the Great American Baking Show episodes. This according to a spokesperson for the network. ABC takes such matters as those described in the allegations very seriously and has come to the conclusion that they violate our standards of conduct. This season's winner will be announced at a later date. Episodes of The Great Christmas Light Fight and CMA Country Christmas will take its place this week and next. And so another television personality gone. Lawmakers, a Texas lawmaker under fire over sexual harassment, has decided to withdraw from the March 6th Republican primary. U.S. Representative Blake Farenthold has said that he will not run for re-election next year. Mike Bergsma, chairman of the Nueces County, Nueces County? What? Mike Bergsma, the chairman of the Nueces. Thank you very much. Nueces, nobody, I've been here for 12 years and I've never been able to pronounce that word. Nueces. Thank you very much. Mike Bergsma, the chairman of the Nueces, Texas Republican Party, was told that he is no longer, that Blake Farenthold is no longer going to run for office. Bergsma said, it's a damn shame. He's been an excellent congressman. I'm sorry this has happened. One wonders if anybody could survive scrutiny as intense as what Blake Farenthold has been through. Then there's this. Tavis Smiley is now under the harsh glaze or gaze of sexual harassment. Tavis Smiley has blasted PBS for its decision to indefinitely suspend his show following one accusation of sexual misconduct. The longtime talk show host vehemently denies. Let me be clear. I have never groped, coerced, or exposed myself inappropriately to any workplace colleague in my entire broadcast career. That covers 6 networks over 30 years. Never, ever, never. This has gone too far. I, for one, intend to fight back. Well, be careful, Tavis. The last guy that tried to fight back was branded as a pedophile without any proof. Tavis Smiley said he was shocked to find out about his suspension. That Variety magazine, the Hollywood entertainment tabloid, knew about the story before he did. He said that PBS began its investigation without informing him, only realized it was happening after former staffers started contacting me to share the uncomfortable experience of receiving a phone call from a stranger asking whether I had done anything at all to make them uncomfortable, and if they could provide other names of persons to call. This kind of investigation is called a witch hunt. Eventually, PBS interviewed him, but not to take into account his personal documentation, refused to provide any semblance of due process to defend himself against allegations from unknown sources. So they're trashing Tavis Smiley just because they can. In a new statement on Thursday, that's today, PBS is standing by its decision. Quote, following receipt of a complaint, PBS hired an independent law firm to conduct an investigation. We stand by its integrity. The totality of the investigation, which included Mr. Smiley, revealed a pattern of multiple relationships with subordinates over many years and other conduct inconsistent with the values and standards of PBS. So Tavis Smiley is going to fight back. I wonder if he's going to be successful. We shall see. What's interesting is that yesterday I raised an awful lot of eyebrows. There were a lot of people looking at me like I had grown another head when I suggested that maybe what we need to do is we need to start thinking about welcoming women to the workplace without makeup on. Welcome women to the workplace with essentially men's haircuts. Welcoming women to the workplace wearing clothing that is more appropriate for a workplace and less appropriate for a nightclub. A lot of people looked at me and went, "What are you doing?" And I said, well, this is the logical move. This is the logical move for where we're going in the United States. I wonder if they're raising their eyebrows at Roxanne Jones today. She's the founding editor of ESPN magazine, former vice president of ESPN. She writes for CNN Opinion. She's done so again. Let me share some of this with you. By the way, CNN made it very, very clear that the opinions expressed in this piece belong to Roxanne Jones and no one else. Certainly not anybody from the network. Listen to this. Admit it. Behind every sexual harasser, be he Matt Lauer or the man next door, likely stands a woman willing to excuse, cover up, or feel heartbroken for the abuser once his lewd behavior is exposed. I've seen this time and time again. I know I'm not the only one. You know these women. Maybe you are one of them. In some cases, the women are personal assistants, executives, co-workers who have benefited from the harasser's success. They've gotten promotions, recognitions, raises. They may commiserate with other women in the ladies' room about the awful boys' club culture. But if you ever accuse a coworker of sexual harassment or abuse, the last thing they will do is support you. If they have power, these women may even fire you for causing a stir. This week, NBC star Matt Lauer became the most recent man to fall amid sexual harassment allegations, which ranged from castigating a woman for not having sex with him after he dropped his pants in the office to sending women sex toys. Lauer apologized. There's enough truth in these stories to make me feel embarrassed and ashamed. I regret my shame is now shared by the people I cherish dearly. When his Today Show co-host Savannah Guthrie broke the news of Lauer's firing on air, she was devastated. I'm heartbroken for Matt. He's my dear, dear friend and my partner. He's beloved by many, many people here. Guthrie added she was heartbroken for the woman who came forward to tell her story and for those who may still come forward. Her fill-in co-host, Hoda Kobed, joined the Lauer Love Fest. Why would Guthrie and Kobed immediately rush in to praise Lauer before they even had the details of the story? This type of selfish, blind loyalty is what enables predators to reign with terror over working women in the first place. Must we always show this automatic sympathy for men we've known who've shown such cruelty to women? It's infuriating. Rumors of their dear friends' womanizing ways were no secret in the media industry, according to Variety. Ann Curry was infamously ousted from the show as Lauer's co-host in 2012, in part allegedly because of her frosty relationship with Lauer. Curry always cited the boys' club environment of the Today Show, according to CNN's Brian Stelter. A different woman who did not want to be named told the New York Times that Lauer called her to his office in 2001 to discuss a story. He locked the door, she said, asked her to unbutton her blouse. She did. He came around, pulled down her pants, and had sex with her. She said she passed out and was taken to a nurse. She told the Times she didn't report the assault at the time because she felt she didn't do enough to stop Lauer and was afraid that she'd lose her job. She quit a year later. Yvette Vega, an executive producer with Charlie Rose since 1991, knew for decades about her boss's crude behavior, which, according to allegations, included walking around naked in front of young women who worked for him, and late-night sexual fantasy calls. Rose has been accused of sexual harassment by 8 women. Still, Vega did nothing for the women who asked for help. So Ms. Roxanne Jones, appropriately, talks about women who enable these men. I wonder if she voted for Hillary Clinton. At a closed-door meeting of House Democrats to discuss reforming how Congress handles sexual harassment allegations, a senior congresswoman stunned lawmakers when she suggested that female lawmakers were inviting unwanted advances because of the way they dressed. Again, this was something that I was raising eyebrows with yesterday. Ohio Democrat Representative Marty Kaptur stood up and told her colleagues that too many members dress inappropriately. It's an invitation to be harassed. This, according to 3 Democrat sources familiar with the discussion. Kaptur said female staffers and reporters were also guilty of wearing outfits she believed were too revealing. Those in the room were totally in shock. Their mouths were agape at the statement from Kaptur. Kaptur told CNN in a written statement she was not suggesting the victims were responsible. When I was first elected to Congress, my office and I became a refuge for female staffers who had been mistreated by their bosses, some of them in tears many days. It is something I carry with me to this day, something I brought up during our caucus meeting. Under no circumstances is it the victim's fault if they're harassed in any way. I shared the stories from my time here in the context of the Me Too movement and how we can elevate the decorum and dress code to protect women from what is a pervasive problem here and in society at large. She prefaced her statement by saying, I might get booed for saying this. But what I'm trying to say is that it's a long jump from people dressing appropriately for work in the Congress of the United States and to immediately assume that what she was saying was blaming the victim for the attack. Let me ask you this question. Which came first? The bullet-resistant vest or cops getting shot? Do cops wear bullet-resistant vests to keep from being killed? Yes. Should they have to? No. But they do anyway.
All right, man. Sounding good.
Did I get nipped?
Maybe that last line, like, but they have to anyway.
Yeah.
I'll have to check the.
All right.
I'm not sure. It could have got in there.
I think it might. I felt like it did.
I'll let
We'll
you
see.
know in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, this sexual allegation stuff is getting out crazy now.
Yeah.
Out of control.
Yep.
All right, back in 1 minute, man.
Back in 1 minute.
All right, here we go in 10.
You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. With women speaking out about their responsibilities surrounding America's sexual harassment epidemic. Is the tide beginning to turn yet? Is the spotlight on this particular topic beginning to dim somewhat? Let's talk a little bit about the women who point out the female side of sexual harassment. Will they pay a harsh political price? Representative Marcy Kaptur of Ohio. Many of her colleagues said, I can't believe you're saying any of this, when she suggested that female lawmakers and staff members were inviting unwanted advances because of the way they dressed. The analogy is very simple. Should cops be shot down on the street? The answer is no. Cops should not be shot down on the street. So if that's the case and pretty much everybody agrees, why do they wear bulletproof vests? Because there are people that don't care that cops shouldn't be shot down in the street. And so now you're in a position where women are being asked to dress more appropriately for the Congress of the United States. How about this? How about a nice suit? How about a very professional pantsuit, if you wish? If you're going to wear a skirt, make it a long one. I went to court once. It was on a speeding ticket. I had been given a ticket by a CHP officer for speed contest. In point of fact, I was not racing the individual that was trying to run me off the road. He was drunk, and he was trying to hurt us all. I was driving a 67 Mustang GT500, a Shelby Mustang. Had the car to do it, and I just drove away from him. Passed the CHP officer somewhere around 140 miles an hour. Shut the car down, got it into the truck stop right there, and got a ticket for speed contest. Got into court. Explained that I was simply moving away from a guy who was trying to run us over, and the people in the car were my witnesses. One of these friends of mine, not my date, by the way, one of these friends of mine was stunningly beautiful in virtually every respect. She was blonde and she was tan, and she was gorgeous. What she wore to court was not inappropriate, but it was extremely flattering to her extremely flattering figure. And the judge admonished her on the stand, saying, let's make this plain. You're not dressed appropriately for court. Don't do this again. And that's how the entire case began. Like I said, she was just wearing basically a jersey. It was a sweater. But it sort of clung to her, and she had things to cling to. And yeah, she was distracting. I will tell you, that dressing inappropriately is a bad idea. Appearing to be clutchable often leads to being clutched. Now, should these people do that? No. Is it rude and socially unacceptable behavior? Yeah. Do the people that are actually doing it care one way or another? No. So in the way that a police officer wears a bulletproof vest, is it time for women in America to transmit their unwillingness to be pestered at work by dressing more appropriately for work? And is it really blaming the victim of sexual harassment for even suggesting that people dress more appropriately for work? I would say no. You are listening to the Wells Report, 844-927-6691. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right.
Well, okay.
Sounding good.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you, my brother. I'll be right back. John David Wells. Hey, how are you? Okay. Sure. Okay. I ran across this thing about Clinton's in the Free Beacon, in the Beak. And I ran across that and I said, we occasionally, what we do is we'll just go whale fishing. Sometimes you catch a whale. And so, yeah, so what we decided to do is we were going to do that. But what we also wanted to do was we wanted to start a rapport with you because we're a small but upcoming network radio show, and we might be able to help you out.
We're back in 10 seconds.
Indeed. Let me call you back because I got to go back on the air. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Please join us. It would be appropriate for you to do so. We have some things we want to talk to you about. Specifically, I don't know what you've got to do in order to get some of this amazing Secretary of State Hillary Clinton material, shall we say, reconciled and then archived. Because as time goes by, more and more incredible news about Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State keeps popping up in front of us. Jack Heretic, writing in the Washington Free Beacon, tells us that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton struck a deal with the State Department while serving in the Obama administration that allowed her to take ownership of records she did not want to make public, according to recently released reports. The State Department does not have the authority to grant Hillary Clinton ownership of records she did not want to make public. The way you take ownership of records you don't want to make public is you don't make public stuff that's private. And you certainly don't discuss private matters while you're the Secretary of State. Let me read that to you again. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton struck a deal with the State Department while serving in the Obama administration that allowed her to take ownership of records she did not want made public. She doesn't get to do that. Clinton and her then Deputy Chief of Staff, Huma Abedin, were permitted to remove electronic and physical records under a claim they were personal materials and unclassified non-record materials. How do we know any of that was true? The answer is you do not. That's why everything generated by a Secretary of State is public information. She could have had private material. She could have it on a server at her house if she wanted to. But she couldn't do State Department business on that server without making it a public server. As soon as you do public business on a piece of recording equipment, if you are a national government officer, it belongs to the National Archives, not you. Judicial Watch made the revelation after filing a FOIA request with the State Department and obtaining a record of the agreement. The newly released documents show the deal allowed Clinton and Abedin to remove documents related to particular calls and schedules, and that the records would not be, quote, released to the general public under Freedom of Information Act requests, unquote. Abedin, for instance, was allowed to remove electronic records and 5 boxes of physical files, including files labeled Muslim engagement documents. You know, where Hillary did a deal for arms to go to Syrian freedom fighters that turned out to be ISIS fighters. What? By the way, I'm not sure that that's what the Muslim engagement documents said. But then again, neither are you and neither is anybody else. That could be very well what they said. The entire Benghazi story could be inside those boxes labeled Muslim engagement documents. The released records included a list of designated materials that would not be released to the general public under FOIA and were to be released to the Secretary with this understanding. Electronic copy of daily files, which are Word versions of public documents and non-records. Speeches, press statements, photos from the website, a non-record copy of the schedule, a non-record copy of the call log, press clips, and agenda of daily activities. All National Archives material. Also, an electronic copy of the secretary's call grid, which is a running list of calls she wants to make. 16 boxes, personal schedules 93 through 2008, prior to the secretary's tenure at the Department of State. Perfectly fine. Take those boxes with you. 29 boxes. Miscellaneous public schedules during her tenure as First Lady of the United States and Senator prior to the Secretary's tenure at the Department of State. It's getting a little crazy, but okay. 1 box personable reimbursable receipts. 1 box personal photos. 1 box personal schedules. A physical file of the log of the Secretary's gifts with pictures of gifts was also handed over to Clinton. Gifts received by the government employees are highly regulated, often strictly limited. Gifts that are motivated by a family relationship or a personal friendship may be accepted without limitation. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton released a statement condemning the agreement between the government and Clinton. We already know the Obama State Department let Hillary Clinton steal, then delete her government emails, which included classified information. But these new records show that that was only part of the scandal. These new documents show the Obama State Department had a deal with Hillary Clinton to hide her call logs and her schedules, which is contrary to FOIA and other laws. Should any Secretary of State be allowed to remove papers from the State Department or National Archives without strict oversight, in your opinion? Did Hillary Clinton take classified information, National Archives information that was not personal, and take that home because it may have exposed her to criminal charges? Since we now live in a world of allegations being perfectly valid as ways to destroy politicians, by all means, let's start throwing some at Hillary. Here's what they would sound like, in case you're wondering. Since it's obvious that Hillary had something to do with Benghazi that she does not want anybody to know, when will we be able to see what's inside the boxes with the files labeled Muslim engagement documents, unquote? That's good enough. As now we have a way of making somebody guilty before they're proven innocent. Now what we can do is we can just go swear out a warrant, go get those things, and get that done. All we have to do now is find a Republican justice, some sort of Republican judge in the federal justice system. That's all we have to do. Great idea. Let's do it. Oh, wait, that takes political courage. That's only something that the left seems to possess, isn't it? I was hoping to speak with Tom Fitton today. He is not available. Hopefully, we'll be able to have him in the next couple of days to talk about this. All of these materials are covered under the Federal Records Act. Every single bit of them. Except, of course, for the ones before she was Secretary of State. I don't care what's in those records. Till somebody tells me that she was engaged in some nefarious activity before she was the Secretary of State. I mean, more nefarious than normal. And that there was something in those boxes that were kept by her before she was the Secretary of State. I don't care what's in them. Neither should anybody else. But the Secretary of State, when she's Secretary of State, picking over federal records that are not hers, making deals with government entities that don't have the authority to be able to grant ownership of federal records. Excuse me? Just exactly what's going on here. I'll tell you what's going on. It's a cover-up. What else could it be? So once again, we get to the point where now we're trying to figure out, okay, what can we do here? What does it look like? Where does this point to? Well, it points to Hillary Clinton violating the Espionage Act. It points to the fact that federal records law means nothing to Hillary Clinton, but then again, we knew that federal law didn't mean anything to Hillary Clinton. Every single one of those boxes, every single one of those pieces of information need to be recalled to the United States government, gone over with a fine-tooth comb to determine whether or not they are either copies of or augments to material we've already seen. I have been routinely incredibly just incredulous at what Hillary Clinton and her husband get away with. There's been absolutely no person in my memory that has been able to skirt the law the way Hillary Clinton has. It's truly amazing. So all of these files and all these boxes of things, that's bad enough, but to leave behind material that there is some sort of agreement that keeps them immune from FOIA, you don't get to do that. I mean, that's a violation of, again, federal National Archives law. You don't get to just edit all that stuff. And Hillary Clinton knows it. Huma Abedin knows it. Cheryl Mills knows it. They know all this stuff. Do I believe that they also knew that they had a friend at the FBI office that would make sure that they're okay? No, I'm pretty sure they didn't have anything to do with that. I'm pretty sure that they were pretty surprised when they found out that indeed they could not release information that is completely the property of the people of the United States and certainly covered under FOIA. I mean, this is beyond the pale. It never stops. You know, I remember talking about Hillary Clinton, and I remember going to great lengths, both Hillary Clinton and President Obama going to great lengths to not cast aspersions on those people. Just to operate in the public interest, just lifting the news out of the newspapers, reporting it to you. And that's what I've been doing. But I've never seen anybody manipulate what is available for the news to report more than Hillary Clinton. And the reason that she does that is because she's got stuff to hide. hide. This is enough to make the Watergate scandal look like a parlor game. This is governmental corruption on a governmental scale. It just defies logical understanding. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Sound like she did a lot of stuff,
dude. Dude.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it'll come back on her eventually.
Probably not before she's dead.
Yeah, probably.
Probably not before she's dead.
Because even if they did charge her, they can drag the court case on forever. And I'm not holding my breath for them to do that. Are you gonna be are you taking off any days around Christmas?
Yeah, I'm going to. I mean, what are you guys gonna? What are your thoughts here?
I know that I don't know. I know, like probably a given that we're gonna do tape on Christmas Day, but if you wanted to, you could do it on the day after too. Because I'm pretty sure Wayne is doing tape on that day.
Yeah, I think I'll probably end up doing best ofs on both those days. Okay. Then I'll come back on, what is it, Wednesday? Yeah.
Because I think I put in for the 26th.
Yeah.
So if you just want to do tape that day, we can get somebody easy to watch it.
If you would.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no problem, man. And as we're going, like, if you want to, as we get closer to that day, I can use some of the stuff that we do around that time for those days. So
sure.
So it's not old or nothing.
That's a good plan.
Cool.
Oh, man.
All right, back in 1 minute.
1 flippin' minute. 1 flippin' minute. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. 844-927-6691. So apparently boxes of materials labeled Muslim engagement documents were taken out of the State Department apparently with the permission of the State Department, which did not have the authority to be able to give Hillary Clinton permission to remove anything, including a stapler. But I suppose if following the money still works, then you're in a situation where, gosh, the more you follow the money, the more things you find and the more things you need to worry about regarding certain individuals formerly in federal service. This from Jim Michaels of USA Today. Sophisticated weapons the U.S. military secretly provided to Syrian rebels quickly fell into the hands of Islamic State. This according to a study released today. The report said the Islamic State's possession of these weapons remain a hard threat to the U.S.-led coalition still operating against the terror group in Iraq and Syria. The arms included anti-tank weapons purchased by the United States that ended up in the possession of Islamic State within 2 months of leaving the factory. Within 2 months of leaving the factory, those weapons were in the hands of Islamic State. This, according to the study by the Conflict Armament Research Organization. That's one that tracks arms shipment. The study was funded by the European Union and German government. Efforts by the U.S. and other countries to supply weapons to rebel groups significantly augmented the quality and quantity of weapons available to Islamic State forces. It's one of the things that's an absolute requirement in asymmetrical warfare. You remain small and you remain agile and you remain opportunistic. The people you are fighting will bring your next articles of material like rifles and weapons and so on and so on, ammunition. All you have to do is take it away from them. The report cites ISIS propaganda showing militants with weapons captured last year from the new Syrian army, an alliance of fighters battling the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. It's long been known that ISIS captured a huge amount of American weapons, including tanks and artillery, when the militant group swept into Iraq from Syria in 2014 and routed several divisions of Iraqi soldiers, many who abandoned their weapons and fled. The new study raises questions about different sources for weapons. Arms secretly sent to rebel factions fighting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in his long civil war, the covert CIA program, begun by the Obama administration in 2013. Awesome. Sophisticated weapons, U.S. military secretly provided to Syrian rebels. The one thing that I just can't get out of my mind is whether those sophisticated weapons went through a little place called Benghazi. And I can't, for the life of me, figure out why they would not have gone through a little town known as Benghazi. You're listening to the Wells Report. Stick around. We're going to have an opportunity for you to talk to us right around the corner on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Sounding good. I'm going to step away for 1 minute, man.
Go right ahead, man.
Be right back. All right, you got 2 minutes, man.
Ooh.
Back in 1 minute.
Ah,
1 second. All right, back in 30 seconds.
I'm here.
All right, cool. Here we go.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. I'm John David Wells. Hi. 844-927-6691 is our telephone number. 844-927-6691. One of the really big bullets that we dodged during the Obama administration had to do with something that seemed very milquetoasty. It was called internet neutrality. Net neutrality. Net neutrality was a scheme for the United States government to essentially regulate the internet. This was truly amazing. This was an opportunity that the Obama administration took under the pretext of saying that people like AT&T, Verizon, Comcast had too much control over the internet. And so the government needed to have too much control over the internet. Really? Yeah. Today, the FCC reversed net neutrality. Voted today to eliminate the open internet order, better known as net neutrality regulations. The decisions give more power to internet service providers to set pricing and prioritize different types of internet traffic. In case you were out there fearful about what tomorrow will bring, take a deep breath. This decision will not break the internet, said FCC Chairman Michael O'Reilly. While repealing net neutrality rules grabs headlines, net neutrality started out as a consumer issue, but soon became a stepping stone to impose vastly more common carrier regulations on broadband companies. O'Reilly said he hopes that Congress continues supporting paid prioritization, specifically pointing out use cases by autonomous vehicles and medical systems that could benefit from prioritized internet speeds. That is stupid, in my view. That's just another example of why a government shouldn't have anything to do with it to begin with. What really needs to happen is that the internet needs to be forced to deal with things on a basis that have to do with free market principles and supply and demand. If free market principles, supply and demand, and so on are the issues and the ideologies of the day, the internet will thrive. If the government micromanages it, the internet will not thrive. The Open Internet Order, which set in place during the Obama administration in 2015, required telecommunications and cable companies to treat all online traffic as equal. Republicans say taking an egalitarian approach discourages ISPs from investing in better infrastructure and technologies to improve the internet. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay? If you are excuse me, if you are having real allergy issues today, if you are someone who is, say, for example, over 50, you may remember really large black phone numbers with interesting bells that rang. The phone literally rang when someone called you. That was back in the days of something called the Bell system. Ma Bell. There was one phone company. It was a public utility. It was coast to coast. It was responsible for all communications. Telephones stayed relatively the same for decades. In fact, the Western Electric phone that you had in your house quite literally may have been decades old. The reason it stayed that way is because there was no reason to try to improve anything. Believe me, the Bell system had some great clarity. Telephone calls were crisp and they were clear, and the chances that you had a bad connection were almost nil toward the end of Ma Bell. It was one of the most amazing bits of industry ever given to human beings. But it was not a free market enterprise. During the Reagan years, Ma Bell was reduced to baby bells, and then the entire industry splintered into all kinds of things. But mostly the things that it splintered into looked a lot like this. If you're looking on the Facebook show that I'm doing right now, I'm holding up my smartphone. It's not a Western Electric phone, but curiously enough, on virtually every cell phone that you have that you can either use or get your hands on, you will find a near perfect recording, a digitized recording of those Western Electric telephone bells that you can use as a ringtone for your phone. Cool, huh? Net neutrality is a way for the government to micromanage the internet. It's a way for the government of the United States, and this is the more insidious part, the part of it that I really had a big problem with, had to do with the fact that the government was going to have instantaneous records of everything being carried by every internet service provider. That was part of the deal. Part of the deal was that everything that had to do with the internet was also going to be sent through a government server. And in that government server would find everything that's being done, everything being talked about, being texted, being sent via internet, thrown into the federal data hub. They're everywhere. But the biggest one's in Utah. You've heard about it. It goes in there, and those records are there forever. Until somebody decides, gosh, that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, and those are my Those are my intellectual records, and you need to contact me with what I want you to do with my records. You know, that's probably going to happen. One of the guys in the chat room of the YouTube live event that we're streaming, and we're streaming video here today on the Wells Report, said Grandma spoke of very large black telephone devices with dials. The telephone was like 15 pounds. Well, it wasn't quite that heavy, but it was certainly close to 10 pounds. The dialing mechanism was really, really cool. It was a spring and gear-like affair, this little, with a set of contacts in it. And when you went to the 8 and you dialed it to the stop, as the dial spun back, it broke contact with the switching equipment 8 times. That's how the switching equipment knew that you were dialing an 8. It was a great big deal when they came up with tones to stop the actual breakage of the contacts. Suddenly they had tones that could be heard by the equipment. I remember when people could get their hands on red ones and blue ones and all those other kinds. It was very cool. But we probably would not have had, we might have had cell phones. But if we didn't need cell phones, we wouldn't have had them. That's what internet neutrality was all about. And like I said, it was an opportunity for the government to micromanage the internet. The FCC is currently led by Chairman Ajit Pai, who was appointed to that role by President Donald Trump. Title II did not create the open internet. Title II is not the way to maintain it, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr said. After a 2-year detour, one that has seen investment decline, broadband deployments put on hold, innovative new offerings shelved, it's great to see the FCC returning to this proven regulatory approach. Carr pointed to the free and open internet that existed before the 2015 Open Internet Order as proof that changes will be successful. Net neutrality proponents, including many large internet companies, argue that allowing ISPs to prioritize internet traffic differently may drive ISPs to charge more for various activities. For example, because streaming video takes up more bandwidth than reading text-based sites, companies could charge more. Removing the regulations may also allow ISPs to stifle service that compete with their own, such as over-the-top streaming platforms like Netflix. Why would that happen? Well, it actually wouldn't happen, but it's being explained by a politician. Therefore, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it. And that's why he's trying to tell you what he doesn't understand. The FCC commissioners were widely split on the decision. Commissioner O'Reilly and Carr voted in favor of reverting the open net internet order. Commissioners Clyburn and Rosenworcel had strong worded arguments against it. What saddens me most is today the agency that is supposed to protect you is actually abandoning you. But what I am pleased to be able to say is that right now the fight to save net neutrality does not end today. The agency does not have the final word. Thank goodness for that, said Mignon Clyburn. FCC Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel said, I dissent from the corrupt process that has brought us to this point, and I dissent from the contempt this agency has shown our citizens in pursuing this path today. The decision put this Federal Communications Commission on the wrong side of history, the wrong side of the law, the wrong side of the American public. The future of the internet is the future of everything. I believe it's essential that we sustain this foundation of openness, and that's why I support net neutrality. Except that's not what you're going to get. That's one of the things that you don't get. Because the government's involved. The government will have its piece. The government will have its say. All right, so what are you saying here? You're saying, okay, so we're not going to micromanage the internet. How are we going to keep track of the internet, and how are we going to keep track of them doing the right thing or the wrong thing or whatever thing that you're thinking of? Well, stick around. I'll tell you coming up in just a couple of seconds. You want the government out of as many things as they can possibly be kept out of. The reason that you want them to be kept out of as many things as the government can be kept out of is because they screw everything that they touch up. And it's time for us to stop them from doing that. And I, for one, am glad that Ajit Pai and the FCC commissioners did it today. This is the Wells Report of the USA Radio Network.
Man, I keep seeing stuff about on the internet about net neutrality and
Yes.
Without it, they're like I saw a thing today that said without it they're going to start charging for using Twitter and Facebook and all these other things. And I was like, I don't know if I believe that.
Wow. Well, I don't know, my friend. I do not know. I do not know. Oh.
Back in 1 minute, man.
One flipping minute.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. 844-927-6691 is our telephone number. Net neutrality is something you may not have noticed too much, but you would have had it been able to take hold. Had net neutrality been able to stay in place, what would have happened is that the entire computer pantheon, the one that all of us depend on, would have basically crawled to a stop. And so what would have happened? Nothing. Although the government would have had access to everything, which is always bad. All that being said, I can talk to you a little bit about Seth Feigerman, writing in CNN Tech. He says, why is net neutrality such a big deal? Well, if there's one thing that both sides can agree on, it's true that the internet is increasingly central to our lives. Any change on how it's regulated is a hot button issue. Everyone uses the internet. Everyone uses these tech platforms, said Michelle Connolly, a former FCC official who supports Chairman Pai. So issues that are coming up right now, people are seeing from a very personal perspective. The FCC plans to do away with the rules that bar internet providers from blocking or slowing down access to online content. The FCC also wants to eliminate a rule barring providers from prioritizing their own content. In the absence of a firm ban on those actions, providers will be required to publicly disclose any instance of blocking, throttling, or paid prioritization. It will then be evaluated based on whether or not the activity is anti-competitive. It's brilliant. It's exactly what you want. It's exactly what you want. The government should make things above board. And this internet neutrality was exactly the opposite of it. You know, they're the only people that would have gotten anything, and this is so typical of the Obama administration. The way this would have gone down is that everybody else would have been duking it out for basically the same internet that you've had for the last 5 years, last 10 years, last 15 years. But that internet, the proletariat internet, would have been incredibly outdone by government sources and sources available to the culturati or the power elite. They would be just a little bit quicker in making that stock deal. They'd be just a little bit quicker in dealing with all number of things that, well, you get the idea. I am looking for another opportunity for the government to get out of making things difficult for us. That's why I'm a conservative. I'm looking very much forward to the government of the United States concentrating on the things it needs to concentrate on. Good roads. Good roads. Good basic things. I am very much hopeful that we'll see a much smaller government as time goes by, but I'm beginning to wonder whether it'll ever happen. The brave words of President Clinton, the days of big government are over, certainly got a setback during the Obama administration. Because of deep state activities, we're not able to move back to the status quo ante of pre-Obama government. Can't seem to get over there quite fast enough for me. Terribly important that we keep the government out of the things that they don't need to have anything to do with, especially all those concerning communication of any kind. Any kind. Telephone number 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. Join us immediately, won't you? I sure would appreciate it. You are listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right, they're sounding good. All right, back in 45 seconds.
I'm back.
All right, so here we go in 5 seconds.
Woohoo! You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. Looking forward to hearing from you today. Something gigantic happened. Gigantic. $52.4 billion worth of gigantic. And this is going to change the way you entertain yourself. I do not know what America's new landscape of video entertainment is going to look like, but let me tell you something, it's going to be amazing. I remember back in the olden days when we had three channels, ABC, CBS, NBC. There were, in some very large cities, independent radio stations or television stations, independent television stations that would show movies nonstop. You know, the movies they'd get a hold of, they'd pay rights for them, and they'd play them over and over and over and over and over. Some of these were really cool stations. Sometimes you'd see a college football game on them or something along that line, but normally you had three networks. You had three television stations. And then, back to the Reagan administration, we sort of started deregulating television, broadcasting, very much like we did today. And what ended up happening is that suddenly we had not just three channels, but we had hundreds of channels. It was amazing. You could see anything you wanted to. I mean, there were all kinds of new, amazing television stations. They were awesome. Gosh, there was Wings. You get to see military aircraft as they were built and all those cool documentaries. It was wonderful. And then it slowly settled down to, okay, not only do we have all these channels, but still we've got hundreds of channels and there's still nothing to watch. Because you run across the weirdest stuff. I mean, really weird things. Some of them funny, some of them not so funny, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now what's going on is the television is sort of turning into the world's largest restaurant menu. There are all kinds of ways for you to watch television. And that's going to get a gigantic boost today. And it got a gigantic boost today because the Walt Disney Company acquired part of 21st Century Fox. The Murdoch family, streamlining Fox's holdings, just made $52.4 billion. Nice payday. 21st Century Fox will shift television and movie-making studios to Disney, as well as the rights to some characters from Marvel comic books that Fox now holds. Such a deal bulks up the kind of shows Disney can provide viewers over one of its forthcoming streaming networks. It's essential as Disney gets ready to yank its shows off Netflix in 2019 and go with its own channel. It also gives Disney a bigger stake in television streaming service Hulu, and it gives part ownership of an international network to distribute movies like Beauty and the Beast. Such a deal. It will likely make things easier for subscribers to the soon-to-be-launched streaming service of ESPN, the sports network owned by Disney, to watch local sports. That's because among the assets required or acquired is Fox Sports' vast regional networks. For superhero fans, buying 21st Century Fox Films TV studios could help Disney fulfill comic book fans' long-awaited dream, a return of the X-Men and Fantastic Four characters to their original owners. Before Disney bought Marvel in 2009, the comic book publisher sold off rights to several of their popular characters, including X-Men's Deadpool and Wolverine, to Fox and other studios. The sale gives Marvel, home to Iron Man, Captain America, Avengers, the ability to fully integrate the popular characters into future films together. One catch: it may take a while. Fox has 3 X-Men films in various stages of post-production and are set for release in 2018. Given how far along they are, the films should be released as scheduled, but it's up in the air as to what comes next. Is it going to redo the roles? Is Disney going to recast the roles? Are they going to get different people to do those things? Are they going to shoot them over again? What's going to happen? Fox's recent adult-focused strategy has helped deal with commercial and critical success of Deadpool and Logan. Both of those films were rated R. A contrast with Disney's family-friendly brand and its PG-13 Marvel films. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, a Fox film, and Chris Evans, Captain America, a Disney Marvel Studios franchise, have weighed in with their thoughts on the potential merger. Ryan Reynolds, time to uncork the explosive sexual tension between Deadpool and Mickey Mouse. Hi, everybody. Really? Chris Evans. So who do I talk to about a Captain Human Torch buddy comedy spinoff? I'm thinking Trains, Planes, and Automobiles meets The Parent Trap. Hey, if you like Star Wars, this might be the plan for you. Disney gains 20th Century Fox's other franchises, including Avatar, Planet of the Apes. Avatar is of particular value. 4 sequels to 2009's record-breaking, currently in development. That's there, set for release through 2025. Wow. Avatar, Planet of the Apes. Avatar is going to have 4 sequels. Wow. The Mouse House would also get rights to another highly valuable asset, the rights to Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which Fox kept in perpetuity as part of its original deal with creator George Lucas to make the first film. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Fox currently owns the rights to episodes 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, but those are set to transfer to Disney Lucasfilm in 2020. Getting all the Star Wars rights under the Disney roof could finally make a long-awaited 3-trilogy box set a reality. And you know what our executive producer, the Philip Brown, just did? He just said, so, what's your favorite? You're a sports guy, right? Yeah. That's good, because Disney has got a roster of sports networks to complement ESPN and to bolster the direct-to-consumer ESPN Plus subscription streaming service. Fox owns 15 regional sports networks nationwide. These networks have broadcast rights deals with 44 of 81 Major League Baseball, National Basketball Association, and National Hockey League teams, as well as broadcast rights for many Division I college sports teams in those respective areas. Fox's 80% stake in the Yes Network, which broadcasts the New York Yankees and Brooklyn Nets, has been speculated to go to Disney as well. Now, what's interesting is that all that sports going to Disney is not going to include Fox Sports 1, along with Fox Sports 2. The company's broadcast channels, notably broadcast national college football games, World Series, NFL football, will stay with Fox. If you are a Hulu binge watcher, all 3 of the major networks are involved in the creation of Hulu, ABC, NBC, and Fox. They own 30% stakes in the popular company. Time Warner, which is set to be purchased by AT&T, now owns the other 10% through the Turner Broadcasting Group. Comcast was interested in purchasing parts of 21st Century Fox, particularly to expand its Hulu ownership. This according to CNBC. But all backed out the Monday of this week, earlier this week. By acquiring Fox's stake, Disney would share its streaming platform to a majority 60% share, with Disney's already announcing plans to launch a non-sports streaming platform in 2019. It's possible the company will instead look to transform Hulu into that platform, or at least give itself another pawn in the future streaming media battle. For the Fox News loyalist, Disney-Fox deal is not a complete purchase. Fox will keep Fox local broadcast channels, home of Sunday night NFL football, popular television shows, The Simpsons, Family Guy, the company's affiliate networks, and Fox News, Fox Business, Fox Sports 1. These properties, as well as the Big Ten Network, will be spun off to a new company, says Fox. So what does it mean? The Murdoch family continues to run Fox News. If you're worried that Disney might own too much, big media mergers often prompt concerns that one company has too much control over film, movies, etc. The Justice Department will be required to approve Disney's acquisitions. The two companies seem to have structured the transaction to smooth out regulatory concerns. Vijay Jayant, an analyst with investment banking advisory firm Evercore ISI, in a note to its investors said, "We see no obvious regulatory issues without the inclusion of Fox Broadcast." So there you go. So, is all of this the beginning of the end of cable TV? Yeah. Are we going to hook our televisions up to, instead of hooking them up to cable boxes, are we just going to hook them up to our computer? You know, we have two Roku stations, televisions right here. Will the televisions hook themselves up to the internet? At some point, will you be able to quite literally go to the internet, do a Google search for any program you've ever thought of ever seeing, and see it instantly? I got to be honest with you, the stuff that I watch isn't necessarily episodic television. I watch educational television a lot because I need to. But most of the time I watch live sports or live news. I got to be honest with you, I spend more time watching news than anything else. I've become a horrifyingly focused news nerd. I realized I was getting to the point where I really needed to start reevaluating, mainly because I was standing there watching C-SPAN one day, chewing on my thumb, waiting for something to happen, knowing full well that it was about to happen, and I was only going to be able to see it on C-SPAN. I'm going to watch. I said, what am I doing? I need to go do something else. Colton, let's go play catch. Will we now have thousands of television channels? By the way, I want to know, how much non-cable TV do you watch? Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, YouTube Red, Apple TV, Google Chromecast, PlayStation Vue. How much of this do you normally watch? Susan and I occasionally watch Apple TV, but that's basically a connection. That's an extension of your cable box. But Susan watches Amazon Prime. We were watching the other day and watching The Tick. Dang, that's a funny show. Hulu, you can watch just about anything, right? Hulu is basically a rerun service. YouTube Red, I don't know anything about. Apple TV, like I said, I've got a couple of them. Google Chromecast, don't know. Don't know about it. Direct to stream. Is cable TV about to become a thing of the past? Telephone number 844-927-6691. Did you enjoy the changeover of television from broadcast TV to cable news and cable television? Well, you ought to think this is really cool. 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. What I'm interested in is am I gonna be able to like do the worldwide Wells Report network? Should I start building one of those really cool news sets? I should. You know, one of those really big studios. Gosh, I worked at a news studio that was like 150 feet long, and there was stuff. I mean, the set went all the way to the back. It was the closest thing to 3D that you ever saw on television. It was neat. I'm going to have to get a warehouse. That's what I'm going to have to do. And of course, I'll have to get a head transplant because I can't put this face on radio or television. So here we go. How much of this non-cable TV do you watch? Is this the beginning of the end for cable television? Are you ready for television to change one more time? You're listening to the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
Hey man, you got about 3.5 minutes. I'm getting a call right now.
Okay.
All right, cool. This guy on the phone said he didn't know you were on there. He's listened to your show for the first time, or I guess he had heard you before, but he's listened to the show for the first time in Dallas.
Oh, cool.
So he said he hates television. He said when his daughter moves out, he's gonna pay it for it.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Well, cool, Mr. Roberts.
I told him that we'll be back in like 2 minutes or so. So he said he'd hang on.
Apple TV blasphemy. UJD and RSBN and News and Church. Watch me. RSBN. What's RSBN? Church watches you. Wow.
All right, back in just about 30 seconds.
30 freaking seconds. 30 freaking seconds.
All right, back in 10 seconds.
You are listening to the Wells Report. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Joining us is Robert in Dallas, listening on 1160 AM KBDT. Robert, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the Wells Report.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. I was telling the screener that I'm done with television. My daughter's in college, and another year when she gets out of college, the TV's out of my house. I just don't appreciate the programming and the garbage. I actually regret. I would have liked to take the $200 a month that I paid on my cable bill and invested it. I probably have well over six figures in investments sitting in the bank.
Oh, at
If
least.
there's somebody that's young listening to me, cancel your television. Get rid of it. Read a book.
Yeah, but what about news? What about all that?
You know what? I really thought about that. I'll still have the radio. There will actually be peace and serenity in my household without the news. I don't trust the news. I don't believe the news. And I'll listen to people on the radio that I can appreciate their intelligence, their perspective, and their rational thought process. There's no rational thought process on the news. It's gone.
Do you know anybody on the radio like that by any chance, Robert?
Well, I just may have rediscovered that person. So there's a strong possibility he works on this station.
Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate
Good
it.
to hear your voice again.
Hey, man, thanks for finding me. I appreciate it. Do you think there are a lot of people out there that don't know I'm here? I tried to tell everyone.
That's a possibility.
I tried.
David, we all live busy lives.
Sure.
And it's good to hear you on the radio again. I appreciate your perspective, and 99.9% of the time you're always right. So keep rocking.
Thank you. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, Robert. Thank you very much. And whatever you do, tell everybody where you found me. And thanks for listening. And as long as you need the news, man, I'll be doing it. I'll tell you what's going on, and I'll be truthful about it. I promise. Let me get to Logan in Dallas, also listening to 1168. No, you're streaming. I'm sorry, you're streaming the Wells Report. Logan, welcome to the show.
What a privilege to be on the Wells Report and listening to you live on your YouTube broadcast. It's excellent. Just to say something about cable TV, yeah, they are going away to a certain extent just because these days there are boxes you can buy. They are legal.
Yeah.
They come pretty much completely filled with your access to anything on the planet. Now, it is available by the internet only, so you have to have good streaming internet.
Right.
Let's see what the ISP does. But yes, it's been out for several years. It's been perfected. You can cut that cable, buy this box one time, and never buy cable television ever again. That's all I wanted to say it. And you have the last word, sir.
Well, let me ask you this question, though, because a couple of things. I know you're a big computer dude. What do you think about the net neutrality idea today?
The ISPs have to be open and allow all streaming no matter what. Good, bad, and different. It has to be allowed to every man, woman, and child. It has to be. They cannot cobble us. They cannot do that to us. They cannot restrict our ability to receive the information we wish to receive.
All right, my brother. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Logan from Dallas. Well, there you go. All right. So a big day today in media. You may not realize it for a little while, but sooner or later, things are going to be changing big time, coming to a television show near you. Yeah. Amazing. The executive producer of the Wells Report is the Philip Brown. Our studio coordinator is Mike Hawkins. My name is John David Wells. I want to thank you very much for joining us today on the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
All right, good show, man.
Hey, thanks, Mikey. I appreciate it. And yeah, I want you to do something about that guy. Okay.
We will.
because you're on my team now, and I don't want to have that happen again. Okay.
All right. No sweat, man.
All right.
We'll take care of it.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one. We'll see you back tomorrow.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye.
Okay. All right. So let's see. I'll need to watch this show Anson again tonight. Okay. Fantastic. All right. I'm out. I'm going to leave now. Let's see. Twitter is gone. Okay. I'm out of here. Yeah, that's gone. Okay. Excitement filled with pertinent information that affects you and all people of Earth. Indeed. All right, my friend. I'm going to leave all of you alone. God's blessings and peace, love, joy. Okay.